that's the narrative is I'm trying to change is marketing is affordable and it can be affordable. There's freelancers like myself that come in and do the work and have the background in aerospace and know where to target and how to market content and making it affordable.
Hey folks, this is Joe Rule with the Bold Visions podcast, where I interview marketers and creatives about how to tell better stories about tech. Show notes and links for this episode can be found at raconteuranimation.com/podcast. Today on the show, I spoke with Kimmie Golesh, the founder of Strategic Space Marketing, which is a marketing firm that caters to small space companies. She founded the company after about 10 years in the industry at UP Aerospace and Paragon Space Development Corporation, or Paragon SDC. I met Kimmie at the SpaceCom Expo in Orlando a couple of years ago, and we hit it off discussing the sort of the unique demands in the industry when it comes to marketing and doing promo videos and that kind of thing. So I'm excited to have her on the show to share about her journey and also her new company since then. In the beginning of the episode, she tells the story of growing up around rocket launches and her dad's company, and how her passion for storytelling in aerospace kind of collided to create the career that she's found. She also shares the strategies she uses to make marketing affordable for small aerospace companies and why building systems ensures that marketing is effective over the long term. So if you're at a small aerospace company and are interested in how marketing might help you grow or reach important decision makers or scale, that kind of thing, or magnify your impact, I definitely recommend you check out this conversation. So thanks so much for tuning in to listen, and I hope you enjoy this launch, sorry for the pun, into space marketing with Kimmie Golesh. Hey Kimmie, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe.
I appreciate you being here, and yeah, looking forward to chatting about space and marketing.
Always.
That is your domain. When I was doing a little bit of searching, a little bit of background to prep for this interview, I heard that you actually grew up sort of in the space industry through your dad's company. And I like to start interviews in someplace fun, a little bit lighthearted. So I wondered if there was a particular story from childhood that you could tell that kind of, is emblematic or was influential in why you chose to continue with this career and, keep it in the family.
Yeah, like you said, I was basically born into the aerospace industry. My dad is a president of a private suborbital flight providing company. So for as long as I can remember, I've been a part of rocket launches, being a part of the preparation that goes into it, watching him actually build the rockets and showing up down in Spaceport America, down in New Mexico to watch the rocket launches. So, it started obviously as a young kid, as a spectator, watching my dad make these insane milestones and breaking world records and having these incredible sponsorship opportunities and working with companies like NASA. Just the whole concept was cool in itself anyway, just to be a part of the rocket launches. But, as I got older and I was able to actually support the launches and the communications, scheduling, and some of the media work that came with it, it was kind of like a light bulb went off for me that I wasn't a rocket scientist like my dad was, but, the attraction to the videography and the photography and the press and all the media related work was something that was just so exciting to me. With all my background work that I'd done, that's really kind of what my driving force was, is finding that spot for me in the aerospace industry along media work eventually.
Gotcha. And so how did you actually get started then? What was your first position, say, your first project?
Yeah, my first position was actually with his company at Aerospace. I was the communications coordinator and delivered a lot of procurements up and back from New Mexico to Colorado as needed for the rocket and its parts. So it started there. And after that, I ended up leaving to go to college and get my degree in business because I had intentions of going back to work for his company in more of a project management role. But with COVID happening and everything, there was kind of a shift in what I was going to do. And I ended up working for another company called Paragon. And that's where I started my full background in marketing. I was working with them.
Okay. And you were working when we met as well at
Yes.
Spacecom.
Yes.
It was I guess a year and a half ago.
Something like that. Yeah. It was a while ago now.
Yeah. So as I just mentioned, you're not with Paragon anymore. You just launched your own company called Strategic Space Marketing. Can you give folks an idea of, what that is, what your vision is for it, and ultimately, like, how can you help these space companies?
Yeah. When I left Paragon, between Aerospace and Paragon is I had so much experience touching everything possible that I could and working as a single person department most of the time for both roles. So it did give me a lot of opportunity to challenge myself in this field, working on so many different projects at one time. So when I decided to leave Paragon, I wanted to be able to give access to smaller companies for marketing needs. And that was just something that from one of my last shows with Paragon that interest kind of sparked from other companies of, needing help with brochures or social media, things along those lines. Just very, very small scale, not necessarily these big, massive campaigns. It was just proper branding. It was just, great networking opportunities and the correct way to handle those return values from attending these trade shows. So when I came back from my last show is strategic space marketing was just the ultimate fix of, how do you make yourself available to these small companies that could benefit from having these correct branding and getting them targeted in front of the right audiences for an affordable cost where most marketing budgets almost don't exist in these smaller companies. It's not a thought. It's something that is treated very much as a lux, not a need. And that's the narrative is I'm trying to change is marketing is affordable and it can be affordable. There's freelancers like myself that come in and do the work and have the background in aerospace and know where to target and how to market content and making it affordable.
So how do you approach making it affordable for these small companies? Because that's definitely something I've seen as well with working with startups and talking to folks in the space industry. What are your offerings and your procedures look like to help on that end?
Yeah, because my focus is small aerospace companies, the way that I approach a lot of these proposals is it's finding out what their objective is and kind of pinpointing what's important and what's of value. And I mean, even asking, what is your budget? What is something that you are trying to stay within, even just for an introductory term, to just get in there and have the opportunity to show them why this is so important. So it's kind of giving them the reins to control what's being done and what's being spent. So when I go to build my proposals for work, it's based off of their inputs and their objectives and saying like, say someone's just looking for some social media support, then it's built around that. And here's how it's done. Here's how it works. Here's my involvement. So it's just kind of instilling a level of confidence in the process because if you're not involved in marketing, I guess those lines can be kind of blurred of, what work is involved. What is the results that we're looking to achieve. So kind of giving them that ability of let's do this, for a few months. And if you want to add on more, then we can reevaluate and I can take on more support. So there is, a level of skepticism that comes with the work that I do just because it is marketing. And that's a hard thing to sell sometimes in this industry is, I do have to have a lot of patience and kind of work my way into educating how everything works and why I'm doing what I'm doing instead of just saying, trust me, let me just do this. It's a very involved process. And I do that on purpose because there are certain contracts that I do where I like the ability to implement something that can run without me if needed. Where if I need to come back, it's twice a year or so to help kind of revamp anything, but they have the ability to maintain it. And that's what my focus is because it is small companies and I understand that the budgets are very small and sometimes it just is what it is, but showing them how to expand their pipeline opportunities with still staying true to their small company values. That's important to me as well.
I think what sticks out there for me is that you're building systems that work without you. And that's huge. Coming from somebody running a small company, with a small budget, somebody who's coming to me and saying, hey, I want to implement a system that's going to help you. It's a very altruistic positioning as opposed to kind of this, yeah, I'll help you, but you have to, you have to pay me every month in perpetuity. It's a much different ask,
It's almost backwards.
So-
It's very different what I do, and it's as just a new business owner, it's something that's just important to me to kind of work on changing that narrative and supporting the space marketers community. That yeah, it's not something that would traditionally be said as sure you pick the price and sure I want you to be able to do this without me in the future, and because there's such a need everywhere. Like I said, I kind of do it intentionally because it opens the doors for me to doing more work elsewhere. With each contract that I do, it's getting me in contact with bigger opportunities. And then it's also opening the door for other freelancers that are trying to do the same thing, where it's just a very hard part of the industry to navigate. And that's what, a lot of me and other space marketers are working to do, is kind of climb that ladder, and then opening up other opportunities for individuals who are looking for a space within this industry, but don't necessarily have the engineering background. It's just not something that's a very open conversation. So it's a very different tactic that I'm taking with this, but there's a bigger goal in mind of opening the store to be even bigger, even if it means, it takes a long time.
I think that's really needed right now, and that I think you're going to do well positioning yourself for really thinking really long term. Marketing budgets are down. The economy is not great right now. And so what you're doing is, I think, a really good fit. So kind of dialing back to something you mentioned a couple different times is you're talking about educating people and helping them understand the value of marketing in order, for you, it's to get the contract to make the sale, and for them it's to help grow their business. And I've seen that in basically across the board in B2B tech companies, that they tend to be very driven by engineers. And a lot of that, I think, also comes from small companies. There are a lot of technical founders out there who, they're engineers and they have a good idea, they start a company. So I'm really curious, what do those conversations look like when you're going into an intro call with these people? They're interested, they know they need marketing. How are you addressing kind of the limited mindset, or how are you educating them on what you can offer them?
With a lot of small companies, is the bandwidth for marketing will kind of be taken from engineers or business development teams, or even the presidents and CEOs that kind of just fill in the position as needed, which, it's very common for small companies for a lot of people to wear multiple hats. But the conversation is, it's important for me to kind of absorb that bandwidth, because what an engineer does is important. It's critical to those technical capabilities that support the contracts that are coming in. That is their job. That's what they're where they need to be. And even with business development teams, they have an extremely hard role. But marketing is kind of that front force in supporting business development, handling those technical conversations to bring the contract pipeline opportunities to the engineers to perform the work. So there's kind of a train effect of, educating like what the value is and why everything starts with marketing, even if you don't really think it does. It starts with your name. It starts with your logo. It starts with your mission statement. It starts with your branding and the access to information that you have about your company and who you're being targeted in front of. There's so many different aerospace companies that exist. I mean, you could go down the list forever, but specific companies don't always need to be in contact with everyone. They need to be in contact with this specific company or type of company, because these capabilities align where there are contract opportunities. And that's what's most important. It's not necessarily about being viral and being this, NASA or SpaceX and, just having this influx of, attention, which I mean, is still great. Like, you still want the attention. That's still great too. But a lot of these small companies worry about diving into having marketing, thinking, well, if we take on more contracts, then that means we have to hire more people and it becomes more expensive. So that's kind of like the holdback is like, we're doing okay. We have good contracts coming in. I think we're doing fine. And that's usually where the comments get to is, I think we're doing okay. There's kind of that the responsibility that can come with doing more does cost the company more. But in reality, there's still a value that can be held as a small company where you're not having to go through all these crazy hurdles of hiring 10, 15 employees. If you're just having a deeper pocket contract come in, that's going to help advance your technologies with what you're already doing and giving you bigger opportunities to do the same things. And I've seen it with a few small companies that is what they do, is started with a small company that wanted to benefit off of, what they had created in their innovations, and got the word out to a bigger company that had a deeper pocket that wanted the exact same thing and just wanted to fund it a little bit differently, where the team was able to manage it and it didn't require more. It was just a more funded contract that was so supportive. So that's definitely where the education process comes of, those are all things that are available within marketing. Is it's not this, you're going to be a viral sensation and you're going to have to buy a new place to have your company. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can maneuver it. And it's just, again, it's based off of what's important to you and what is your objective as a company. What are your goals, and how can I help you get there with you staying true to what it is you're looking for, instead of me trying to sell you on, here's all the things that I can possibly do for you. Let's go ahead and do it. Like, that's not necessarily a catch to smaller companies. They still want to be as involved and in control as possible. And I respect that.
It's well said. Another thing that I've noticed in B2B tech is that, and I'm hearing this and seeing it through a lot of other industries, not just space, but there are many one-person marketing departments right now. Like you were mentioning that a lot of times in these small companies that the marketing is it's absorbed by other positions, people wearing multiple hats, but sometimes, they do have in the larger companies, they'll just have one person, even for like these. I just talked to somebody last week who's in a several $100 million company, and she's the only marketing person there running the whole thing. So and that's what, you're not doing that size of a business, but you are a one person marketing department now, and you're managing, lots of different clients and keeping a lot of balls in the air. So what kind of things can you recommend for people that are in that position? Like tools, maybe AI tools or tactics or structure strategies that they can stay sane and actually be effective.
Yeah, sure. I'm mentoring a few people right now. So this is a common question because I made the same mistake when I started. When I worked with my last company, I did wear a lot of hats, and I was juggling a ton in between traveling and just other roles that I was supporting. And, it was a ton, and I just was exhausted and almost burning out. But, what I found is when I came to doing this on my own is I started off my company that way and just leaving it open and saying, I can do all these things. I've done all these things. I can do all these things. And it made it almost next to impossible to market because it was so confusing, because it's, unless you are involved in the marketing world, it's really hard to understand all the work that's being done and what these things are and why it's valuable and why these things are all being listed off of services that somebody should consider. So, over some time and kind of figuring out how to actually manage everything, not only just for myself as a business owner, but just in general for my clients, is narrowing down my niche. Marketing is such a broad word. Like I said, it entails so many different things that you can be doing. So for myself, I focus more on space events and the materials that come with, and building my services around what would go into a show, what would make a successful show. However, those same services can be offered as a retainer basis as well, so that I have the benefit of doing both if someone's not interested in show support, but I'm also not just kind of opening up the floodgates to anything and everything. I market it differently. However, with talking with the client, is that I still give them that ability to customize what it is they want to do. It's just not how I market it. It's more of a private conversation with those meetings and those proposals that are getting built that's done differently that way. So with a lot of the mentoring that I do with a couple folks that are interested in moving into the space marketing world, that is my biggest advice, is finding what is your biggest skill set in the space marketing world. If it's social media, like latch onto social media as hard as you can, build a service around that, and then, start to build off of that as you have time to grow and do other things. And the reason for that is not only is it good for you to have different workloads doing the same thing that you are really good at, but it gives you the opportunity to grow as much as you possibly can while taking on other side projects to learn more. But it's a lot to try to jumble. If you were to have, let's say, 5 contracts at one time and you've got 5 different things that you're working, I mean, that's a lot. And that's, it's going to diminish your value of work, jumping around like that sometimes. It's not impossible, but it is a challenge. And that's, something I would say a very, very seasoned marketer probably could handle. But, for even myself, it is a lot. And I try to stay very close to my niche for that reason, so that, I'm representing myself the best way possible with the best work that I can do, but still taking on smaller opportunities with something maybe I'm not as great at, and learning how to be better by taking on these small opportunities so that I am well-rounded and can even open the door for others that I know are involved. And that's kind of the benefit of the space marketing community, is there's so many different niches, and that's typically what people do, that it's nice to know, I've got people that do websites. I know people who do trade shows, and we kind of all bounce off of each other. Like, I don't do this, but this person does. So it's definitely a good community to be a part of, and to focus on that niche and know that it's good to do it that way.
Can you, if it's moderately simple to explain, you said that you focus heavily on events. What does that look like? Like, when you say you have somebody going to Space Symposium, what is the preparation and the execution, and then the follow-up for them?
Yeah, I mean,
What would that
there's,
look like?
for events, for symposium specifically, that is such a large event, and it's here in my state. But there is pre-show, during show, post-show work. It's definitely not like, let me set up your registration and, here's some pamphlets, go crazy. There's a lot more work that definitely goes into it. And it starts months in advance. It starts with, the branding, sponsorship opportunities, exhibit opportunities, connections with the right attendees that are even coming. There's a lot of support that goes into building that, and even supporting the internal team and making sure that they have the correct materials to support the event. And then even during show, there's a lot of materials of content and promotional things of, hey, we're going to be here. You want people to start finding their way to this company for whatever the reason is. And then during show, I like to be involved with shows when I can, for that reason, to grab content and stay current with what's going on, who to be reaching out to, who to follow up with, and kind of bringing some awareness to the actual team itself, not just the company and the highlights of what they do. And then there's post show, and it's just kind of that same follow-up. Here's everything that's involved in closing out every action, and even supporting CRM work from those shows. And yeah, there's a lot. It's, for a show like Symposium, I say it's usually about a 9-month total process. And, it's because I've worked in events for so long, it's very easy for me to handle the events and the coordination, the hotels, lodging, registration, everything like that is included with the show, where I really want teams just to be able to show up, focus on their meetings and what's important for them to focus on, and let me handle the chaos of the events and shows and managing everyone's agenda. And just kind of takes that bandwidth off of the team to have a solid show.
Speaking as someone who's done shows, at least, walking them, that all sounds amazing. Having all the prep and all the logistics and the outreach and all of that taken care of would be a dream. Do you handle booth design and kind of strategizing around how the companies are going to show up and how they're going to present themselves at a show?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's always their final say, but I do offer my suggestions and my build out plans. And I do have a long-term friend that has building booths for a long time. He has his own company that I go through and use. And I have a graphic designer as well that I use to help support, make sure that everything is as clean and presentable as possible. But yeah, there's functionalities that come with exhibit booths, not just make sure it looks cool. But I like to try to incorporate and make sure that, while attending a show, it's important to understand the flow of how everything needs to be. And even I've offered to even support being at the booth, since I've done that, and kind of just helping, manage the influx of whether it's handing out swag or, kind of introducing bypassers to the teams and things like that. So there's a whole lot that can go into a show, and there's a lot of opportunity to support.
So kind of drilling down to a very specific case. We'll take the example of a small space startup, say a couple of founders and then, less than 5 people. And they have like really, really good tech. They have revolutionary new tech and they want to grow a lot, but nobody knows about them. And this is the reason I'm asking this is because I've seen this before, that there are these companies that have they have really, really good ideas and they're just not getting the traction that they need in order to make it or to really grow. So I'm curious, what is there like actionable advice or just kind of a framework or a mindset that you would offer to the founders of those companies to help them reach those goals?
Yeah, that's kind of a tricky one. And I think this is why I always say, space marketing is so different than just marketing. Like it is its own little niche almost because, industry knowledge is important here for that reason. When you market with somebody, because of that, you have to find those target audiences. So it is kind of our due diligence to do that research and understand what the potential client base even is with those objectives, what these innovations are trying to do. So, I wish I could say there really was a good blueprint, but the connections and the industry knowledge that space marketers carry is crucial for that reason, because we do have that background, having either connections from all of our networking or knowing maybe of the right company to connect with. That's kind of like our specialty gift is because we're marketers, we're pretty involved in the industry with our networking. And that's kind of how we gravitate around and make sure that the research and support to those opportunities are made available, not just anyone and everyone, but directed target.
It's a really good answer. So say you've done your research. How do you typically start to make these connections then once you've established that? Is it more because the space industry is so small? Is it a lot of referral type connections, or do you use other methods?
Yeah, it can be referral. There is just a lot of networking that even I use for my own work, because I have to do the same thing in finding the right people to connect me with the right opportunities. So it's, very, very similar in that sense of having to make my own introduction and having to try to follow up and find ways to, connect with people even at shows if I can't get hold of them on, email or LinkedIn. Like there's, sometimes it takes a while and have to find those right connections. And for myself, like I do a lot of research on LinkedIn, and I find as many liked position is what I do to try to connect with those people or business development teams that I have a good chance at communicating with and kind of establishing a relationship that can help support me getting into contact with somebody else that, either has a referral or has an opportunity. There's never a dead end conversation. It leads to something. And even if it's not right away, it's good to have your name on somebody's radar for the reason that you were trying to push forward.
In general, do you think is the space industry very networking driven?
I think so. I absolutely think so. I wasn't super aware of it until I started my own company, actually. I didn't really use LinkedIn a whole lot. I just kind of put my head down and worked. And once I was able to dive into LinkedIn specifically, it was a very open community. This industry is massive. Even as small as it is, it's actually really big. And I'm constantly meeting new people every single week. And sometimes it's a great connection for someone that, does similar work. And there's things that we can learn from each other because there are so few space marketers. And there's a handful that I know of, but it's still really hard to find a whole bunch of them. But also having those same connections, be able to kind of facilitate me in the direction of, this is somebody you might want to talk to. They were asking about trying to find this type of work. Sounds like it's something you're in line with. So it's definitely an easy industry to navigate as far as communication, but getting the contracts is something that takes a little longer.
Yeah, that's fair. You got to build that trust.
Yeah.
I did have a bunch of other questions that we can just kind of freestyle it, if that's okay. All right, so topic du jour, AI. How has AI been affecting your role specifically? And also, how is it affecting the space industry? in general?
For myself, it is something that I like to try to use every now and then as a foundation, but it can be kind of hard because it can be very generic, and that's what takes away from what my core of the work that I do. So I think sometimes it's nice for ideas and just kind of like fluent, that just support in general. And I think most people will say that same thing is it's a good support tool if you just need something to kind of help fuel your brain to figure out how to fill in the blanks of what you actually want to say. But, as far as the space community in general, I don't know if I would say I think it's used a whole lot because of the proprietary information that can be shared. I don't know what the restrictions and liabilities would be in general. I mean, with space marketers, I'm sure that it's pretty common for what I understand, but outside of marketing, yeah, I'm not sure what the restrictions would be with sharing that type of information or even trying to write proposals or something through AI. That might be something companies might not be for, but I'm sure down the road there will definitely be AI support built specifically. That's something that companies can use to help push activities along faster, because anyone who's done a proposal knows it is one of the most time consuming things on the planet. It's just, there's so much rinse and repeat that can happen while changing the smallest of details over and over and over again. And that's something that AI could absolutely support. And I'm sure even on the engineering side, the same thing. So I think there's an opportunity in the future. I just don't know how open that is quite yet.
Yeah, I was wondering if something in engineering or flight planning or something, AI would be a good tool for that. But I never thought, I hadn't thought about yet the intellectual property in aerospace and space is so sensitive that it's not like they're going to want to be
right
giving all that stuff away to OpenAI.
Yeah, like I'm sure it's
whoever.
wanted for the same reason that, we like to take advantage of it because it's so supportive. But yeah, it's those liabilities that I wonder if they even could. But maybe someone's working on building something companies can purchase where that is safe for them to use them. That would be a game changer.
In the space industry and space marketing in general, how is video used? And is it used at all? Is it as far as like promo and marketing stuff?
I see it sometimes, and I like some of the videos that I see sharing and things like that where it is exciting. But the problem is sometimes is I just see content or just reshared things that, there's, I don't even know how to say that, I guess. Like, there should be more. Like, there are very few promotional videos that I've seen out there, and they're awesome. The ones that I have seen, like, there's definitely massive work and videography and, great stop motion work that's done and visuals and audio and things like that. And I think that's what's captivating. And that's what I like, is I like bold and edgy marketing promos. I like things that are exciting. This is the space community. Space is exciting. And I think that's part of why I want to do what I do, is for that reason, is I get really just drawn out with the very slow motion, quiet. It just, like, space is exciting and I like being loud and I like the adrenaline that comes with it. It's probably based on my background with rockets that, I like the adrenaline side of space and it being exciting. But I think that there should be more. And part of branding that I offer to companies is including those promotional videos that can be used that are exciting and get people's attention. I want people to stop scrolling when they see it and they want to watch it until the end. Even if it's 30 seconds long, it's enough and it's captivating. But content is a hard thing, and that's something that technically is an easy thing. You can just go on Canva and build, but if it doesn't capture, it might be a pretty picture, but there's more that has to go into it. There's more strategies that are involved with even just video content and image content.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. And that was actually a topic for the podcast that'll be coming out right before this one. I talked to a video marketer, and his argument is essentially that the content is maybe 25% of the actual effectiveness on video marketing.
Yeah.
And 75% is in how it's implemented.
Yeah.
In the small details like the thumbnails and the copy and the editing, creative testing, re-editing it according to the data that you get back. So what is unique about space when it comes to marketing struggles or marketing needs? What makes it different than the umbrella term of marketing?
I think, I mean, as general as it's going to sound, is it's, the competition and, the private sectors of what is being done. That's, it's a different marketing tactics you have to use based on those proprietary information. And it's critical on how you share anything, regardless if it's proprietary or not, because of how serious and advanced these technologies and capabilities. And it's a much bigger concept that comes with a much bigger responsibility. And it does require industry knowledge to me to be a space marketer and to be a good space marketer, because there's a lot more insight that has to be understood on what you're being involved with and what companies you're working with, and sometimes even the politics that are involved with it. Like, there's just definitely a lot more that has to be considered when doing this type of work. And it is a massive challenge, but it's one that you want to take on. It's fun.
You mentioned competition. What you mean? Just like competition within companies in the industry? Then it's very competitive.
So it can be. So a lot of bigger contracts, you'll see multiple companies working on the same type of contract, but there's certain advantages that you can take with collaboration work, but then there's also some that you can't. And you have to understand what those limitations are, what those restrictions are, based on the sensitivity of the contract and what it pertains to. And with those other contracts that are involved, how that affects them, because then that can essentially affect your ability to work with other companies. There's a lot of tiptoeing that has to be done, and make sure that it's done right and communication is clear. For those reasons, is to be very careful.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And I've seen that, at least anecdotally. So I have friends that work in aerospace. They're a bunch of engineers, and the regulations and the paperwork and the confidentiality and all of that, and the politics of it feels a lot different than other industries, for sure. And so confidentiality would be a huge thing for your customers. And marketing, marketing is all about noise and getting the word out and being bold and connecting with, capturing eyeballs, capturing minds. How do you balance those two things? How do you navigate that?
Thankfully, with me narrowing down what my niche was, all my services and efforts are based on external support. So nothing proprietary gets shared to me because of that reason. So I've kind of been able to avoid that for now, where I don't have to necessarily worry about that, because, well, the only things that are being shared with me are things that are meant to be shared and external use. I don't have access to anything that isn't. So it does kind of protect me. But I do know that there are others that do proprietary work or confidential work, and they are under it, no different than working with an aerospace company. They're put under NDAs and, their support things to keep the work that they're doing confidential for whatever those limitations are. But I prefer to do the external way for that reason. Is I like to be loud and I want to do, fun, crazy, wild things and have access to do that, because of how tricky proprietary information can be to handle and to manage. And, it does limit a lot that you can do when you have to work around all of that. So I try to stay on my side of the external side of events and materials for that reason.
Great way to handle it. And that way you're giving full autonomy to the customer to, to protect their own data and, give yourself the freedom and the creativity. And so it's built right into the relationship to protect the customer. Any last thoughts, or, something you'd like to leave the audience with?
I think, in general, my goal is always to reach out and find more space marketers looking to do the same thing or already doing the same thing. There is a space marketing community that's still evolving and growing. And so I want to encourage everyone to, that is interested in this to reach out and be a part of it, and, find a good mentor and join these bigger opportunities that are in the works right now for the space community. There's a team that's being built, and support and coaching and mentoring and even event work that's being done to start kind of changing this narrative about space marketers. But that support only comes with the influx of other space marketers being involved.
And you're referring to the LinkedIn group that you've created?
Correct.
bring people together.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'll definitely link to that in the show notes. So
Awesome.
whoever's listening, check the show notes or check the written part or the comments of this post. And what's the best way for people to reach you if they want to chat, want to connect, they want to work with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is always going to be the easiest. That is something I'm constantly on and where I do probably 90% of my networking. So finding me on LinkedIn is one of the easiest ways to get a hold of me. But you can also go to strategicSpaceMarketing.com and send in a request inquiry for a media kit and demo quote. So either or.
Perfect. And yeah, once again, I'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. So, well, thanks so much, Kimmie, for coming on and chatting and sharing your wisdom about space marketing.
Thanks for having me.
It was my pleasure. And yeah, let's talk soon.
Yeah, sounds great.
Hey, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. If you liked this episode, got value from it, or have any feedback, please leave a comment or send me a message. The best place to reach me is on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Joe Rule, or just search for Joe Rule. I'll pop up. I post clips there from the podcast and also talk about 3D animation, production, and storytelling for tech companies. You can also email me at howdy@raconteuranimation.com. Please subscribe to be notified about new podcast episodes if that's your thing and you'd like to learn more about marketing, creativity, and tech storytelling. Until next time, ciao, ciao.